of Penn. We thank him for being here. He has joined in this fight for justice. I don't know if you guys saw the press conference with NAACP, BPEP. Reverend Thornton was there representing Penn, and we are glad to have him and appreciate him standing up and speaking about what's going on in this city.
Thank you. Good afternoon, brothers and sisters. I'm so glad that we're all here this afternoon. We've got to stand here as God's beautiful, diverse people. We've got to continue to stand for justice. And no matter how long it takes, we've got to keep standing. We've got to be persistent. We've got to be persistent in the midst of injustice. We've got to stand up for injustice. And when we leave here today, we've got to be bold enough to go to other people that we know, and we've got to look them in their faces and say, how come you're not standing up for justice? You can be wrong when you do something wrong, and you can be wrong when you don't stand up for wrong. You're just as guilty of a sin of omission as you are with the sin of commission. So we've got to keep on standing as all of God's people. And we've got to be persistent. I didn't come to preach today, but if I were to take my text, I would tell you about, in the scriptures, there was a widow woman who wanted justice. And she went to a judge that had no respect for anybody. And she continued to be persistent. She continued to make her case. And finally, the judge granted her justice, saying, let me grant this woman justice unless she wears me out. We've got to wear them out. We're going to wear them out in the name of justice. And before I hand the mic over, I just want to say, as I look around and see these rightful indictments here, as I see these indictments posted to this building, I'm reminded of Martin Luther. Martin Luther, many centuries ago, when he, in the name of doing what was right, stood even against a particular church. And he wanted to make sure that the church had some reforms in order that things would be made right. As I see these indictments, it lets us know it's time for reform right here in Pittsburgh. It's time for reform amongst the Pittsburgh policemen. It's time for reform in terms of how people are treated, regardless of who they are. We're all God's people, and we deserve to be treated